warm welcome to this edition of World Konnect. I'm Sakal Bhatt and this is your one-stop show that brings to you all the top stories the world over. And first up, let's set the ball rolling with the focus of the World Konnect. The plight of Balochistan comes into focus as Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi mentions it in his Independence Day speech. Constant suppression by Pakistani government and army and devastated the region which is fighting for freedom from Islamabad. Haunting image of 5-year-old Syrian boy Omran Daqneesh underlines the human cost of Syrian war, triggering shock and outrage across the globe as fighting in Alleppo intensifies. Hundreds of thousands of children continue to be vulnerable. And major victory for cholera victims in Haiti as United Nations finally admits role in epidemic outbreak in 2010, which has claimed over 10,000 lives so far. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon admits moral responsibility to help victims and their families. In Inside Asia, the plight of Balochistan, often struggling to find space in international lines, came to focus once again after Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi mentioned it in his Independence Day speech. As Baloch people welcomed Prime Minister Modi's speech, Pakistan came under severe pressure and invited Baloch leaders for talks. The region, which is yet to taste the fruits of development, has been fighting for freedom from Islamabad and wants it to share the benefits of its natural resources.
Known as Pakistan's other war, the plight of Baloch people rarely attracts international attention despite widespread violations of human rights, army-led atrocities and crackdown on activists. The mineral-rich region of Balochistan that forms 44% of Pakistan's total area continues to reel under severe poverty. But the struggle of Baloch people is hardly visible in international headlines. As India celebrated 70 years of its independence, Prime Minister Narendra Modi mentioned Balochistan in his speech. This gave Baloch leaders a new ray of hope, expecting that they will not be ignored anymore.
I thank the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi Sahib, for speaking about Balochistan problem. I thank Prime Minister Modi Sahib on the behalf of whole Baloch nation. And we hope that the Indian government, Indian media and whole Indian nation will not only raise their voices for Baloch nation but also strive to help practically the Baloch independence movement.
Balochistan has been in the grip of a bloody insurgency for decades. Before the current state of Balochistan was created, it was known as Kalat. The accession of Pakistan by the then leader of Kalat, Ahmad Yar Khan, led to trouble in relationship between Balochistan and Islamabad. These troubles exploded into uprisings against the state in 1948 and again in 1958. A third rebellion took place in the mid-1970s. The three wars and constant suppression by Pakistani army dented the region deeply. Another uprising triggered since 2005, led by Baloch leader Nawab Akbar Bugti. In 2006, Nawab Akbar Bugti was killed when Pak army stormed his hideout. His grandson, Rahumdag Bugti, is currently in Geneva in exile and leading the Baloch movement. Pakistan government has often responded harshly to the uprisings against it. Baloch activists accuse Pak army of adopting kill and dump policy to eliminate their people. Discovery of mass graves in the past proved that the accusations have substance. Rights bodies have often voiced concerns over the state of affairs in Balochistan, but Pakistan not only restricts entry of foreign media into the troubled region, but also doesn't welcome rights advocates there. Locals accuse Pakistan to use the aid received from Western countries to combat terrorism to kill Baloch people. Thousands of people are missing and locals say that they discover mutilated bodies almost every day. Balochistan is Pakistan's biggest yet least populated province. The territory boasts of enormous reserves of gold, gas and copper, as well as untapped sources of oil and uranium. It also has enormous strategic importance as a hub for future oil and gas pipelines and also for its 1,000 kilometers coastline. Baloch fighters seeking independence accuse the government of exploiting the gas and mineral reserves but neglecting the poverty of their people. The Pakistan-China tie-up for development activities in the region has also angered the locals. They complain that China-Pakistan economic corridor also neglects the interest of Balochistan. Recently, Baloch activists took out protests in various cities across the globe to raise awareness about atrocities by Pakistani army. Pakistan has been obdurately denying allegations and has shown no intent to address the issue. After India gave voice to Balochistan's cause and Bangladesh also expressed similar sentiments, Islamabad came under severe pressure and invited Baloch leaders in exile for talks. Although it remains to be seen how serious Pakistan really is.
Well, this image of the 5-year-old Omran Daqneesh from conflict-ridden Aleppo in Syria stunned the world with shock, dismay, and for some it may bring tears as well with palpable pain. This is what a conflict-inflicted region leaves behind it. Trail of devastation glaring at future generations. This video shows 3 small children being rescued from the rubble after a building was hit by airstrikes. Fighting for control of Aleppo, split between government and rebels, has intensified in recent weeks, leaving behind hundreds of deaths.
Covered in dust and blood, 5-year-old Omran Daqneesh is stunned and bewildered. Despite being injured after he received head wounds, he is not crying, not even talking, but definitely seeking answers. Answers that big nations, global powers, and the world community have not been able to provide. The images of Omran sitting quietly in an ambulance seat have gone viral and triggered widespread outrage and pain across the globe. The haunting video released by opposition activists showed 3 small children being rescued from the rubble after a building was hit by airstrikes in rebel-held Al-Qatarji in Aleppo. Aleppo is one of the bastions of the rebellion to oust Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Fighting for control of Aleppo, split between government and rebels, has intensified in recent weeks. Hundreds of deaths have been reported, while civilians are deprived of power, water, and basic needs. The situation has further worsened by 8 blockages and supplies not being allowed to reach the affected. Upset over current lack of aid supplies, the UN Special Envoy for Syria, Staffan de Mistura, suspended a humanitarian task force meeting until next week as a signal to major powers.
I suspended the IHTF meeting as a symbol of deep concern and as a sign of respect towards the World Humanitarian Day, and as a sign of deep unhappiness about the fact that due to the lack of a pause, no humanitarian aid is reaching anywhere Syria at the moment.
The United Nations said last week that 2 million people lack access to clean water in Aleppo, creating a risk of disease. In April, the UN Special Envoy estimated that at least 4 lakh people had been killed in Syria. War has uprooted nearly half of the country's population. The reported 1 lakh children are the most vulnerable due to scaled-up hostilities in Aleppo. Last week, several children were reportedly killed in an airstrike at a school in Yemen. Not just Syria and Yemen, but in other conflict-torn parts of the world as well, children are facing the brunt of war the most. The striking pictures of Omran Daqneesh were reminiscent of Aylan Kurdi, the Syrian toddler who drowned in a bid to cross over to Europe, fleeing Syria crisis. Kurdi's images brought the Syrian migrant crisis to international attention, forcing major powers to prioritize the issue. But the big question is, how many Aylan Kurdis or Omran Daqneesh do the warring sides need to silence their guns?
Turkish Prime Minister Binali Yildirim has reiterated that Ankara has raised the state of alarm to a higher level after bomb attacks killed at least 7 and wounded 224 in southeast Turkey in a fresh spate of violence. Turkish President, meanwhile, Tayyip Erdogan has said the followers of US-based cleric Fethullah Gulen are working together with Kurdish militants to threaten the country. Meanwhile, Turkey's foreign minister has said that this week documents have been sent to the United States for Gulen's extradition.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan has blamed followers of US-based cleric Fethullah Gulen for playing a role in the series of bomb attacks in eastern Turkey. In a speech broadcast live on television, Erdogan said Turkey was facing joint attacks by various terrorist organizations who act together. Turkish Prime Minister Bin Ali Yildirim reiterated Ankara has raised the state of alarm to a higher level after bomb attacks killed at least 7 and wounded 224 in southeast Turkey. Turkish Prime Minister Binali Yildirim visited wounded survivors of a car bomb attack in eastern Turkey post the attacks.
Everything is obvious. It's a separatist terrorist organization PKK and its offshoots. We have no doubt about it. We know this and we launched an inquiry required for this process.
Turkey has made it clear it wants to put Gulen on trial and that Washington should not make things difficult for its strategic partner. More than 40,000 people, mainly Kurds, have died since it took up arms against the Turkish state in 1984. It is considered a terrorist organization by United States, Ankara and Europe. Meanwhile, Turkey released prisoners before the end of their custodial sentence on August 18th as part of the penal reforms, freeing 38,000 inmates to make space for thousands of suspects rounded up over the last month's failed coup. Inmates freed from Silivri prison in Istanbul welcomed the move. I had one more year to go. I am surprised for me. I am still very surprised. People waited in the prison compound for their relatives to be released. According to the Justice Ministry data obtained by Anadolu Agency, there were 213,499 prisoners in jail as on August 16th, more than 26,000 above prison capacity.
The world's longest aircraft, the Airlander 10, successfully made its maiden flight on Wednesday in Britain. The part plane, part airship, measures 92 meters long, which is around 15 meters longer than the biggest passenger jets. It slowly lifted off from the Cardington airfield in Bedford, 60 miles north of London, climbing to an altitude of 2,000 feet in 15 minutes. Airlander's maiden voyage was scheduled to take place last Sunday but was postponed due to a technical problem. British company Hybrid Air Vehicles funded the £25 million aircraft, which was first developed and then cancelled by the American government as a surveillance project. It can stay airborne for up to 5 days at a time if manned and for over 2 weeks unmanned. The company says the Airlander 10 can be used for various functions, which includes carrying cargo, military and commercial surveillance, and that it has a significantly lower carbon footprint than other forms of air transport. U.S. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has expressed regret for remarks that may have caused personal pain. During his campaign in North Carolina, Trump sought to refocus his message in the face of falling opinion poll numbers in his first speech since a shakeup in his campaign this week. Trump has made his tough talk and brash style a selling point of his campaign for the November 8 elections, rarely apologizing even in the face of criticism for past remarks from within his own party. Trump took steps to overhaul his struggling campaign. The move, his second staff revamp in less than 2 months, named veteran political strategist Kellyanne Conway his campaign manager and Breitbart News executive chairman Stephen Bannon as the campaign's chief executive. And days after the shakeup, Paul Manafort resigned as chairman of the campaign. The Brazilian Senate rejected a defense appeal of the suspended President Dilma Rousseff, who has demanded that the political impeachment against her be repealed on grounds of alleged embezzlement by interim President Michel Temer. The trial opens up on 25th of August and Rousseff will be presenting her defense on 29th.
Brazil's suspended President Dilma Rousseff will take to the stand to defend herself at her impeachment trial at the Senate. Rousseff is accused of fiddling the national budget to make Brazil's tanking economy look better to get re-elected in 2014. Denying this, she accused her opponents of trumping up the charges against her to remove her in a coup. Admitting to making some mistakes, Rousseff told people she has done nothing worthy of impeachment ahead of the impending trial. She also called for strengthening democracy in Brazil.
It isn't legitimate what they wish for, my accusers, removing the head of the state of the government for what she did. They who can judge the president and remove the president for what she did, that is the people and only the people through elections.
The trial is due to open on the 25th of August. Chief Justice of Supreme Court Ricardo Lewandowski will preside over the trial and has allotted time for Rousseff to testify on the 29th of August. The final showdown of the 9-month-long impeachment battle will be on the 30th of August or the 31st, when the Senate is scheduled to hold the final vote. However, marathon sessions have been witnessed in the political battle gripping the South American country, and Lewandowski has said there is no given deadline. Recent surveys of senators in local newspapers show that the suspended Rousseff is expected to be impeached and permanently removed from office in late August. Dilma Rousseff was suspended in May this year, and Vice President Michel Temer is the acting president of Brazil now.
United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has said that the world body has a moral responsibility to help Haiti cholera victims and their families. The outbreak in 2010 claimed almost 10,000 lives and infected more than 770,000 people. The UN has first time since the outbreak acknowledged its role in the epidemic.
One of the world's poorest countries, Haiti, had not seen the outbreak of cholera in almost 100 years. But in 2010, when the epidemic doubled the nation's problems, which was already grappling with massive devastation caused by an earthquake, the quake that killed more than 200,000 people left Haitians lacking for basic facilities, and a cholera outbreak multiplied their misery. Since then, cholera has claimed nearly 10,000 lives and infected more than 770,000 people. The epidemic was caused by leaking sewage pipes near a UN base housing Nepali peacekeepers. Experts believe that the strain for cholera supposedly originated in Nepal, where it is an endemic. For many years, the United Nations has been denying any role in the epidemic. US courts have repeatedly rejected complaints filed by the families of cholera victims in New York, where the UN is headquartered, due to the world body's immunity. It has now said that the world body has a moral responsibility to help the victims and their families.
The Secretary General is actively working to develop a package that would provide material assistance and support to those Haitians most directly affected by cholera. These efforts must include, as a central focus, the victims of the disease and their families.
Haitian human rights lawyer representing the victims has said it was a major victory for the thousands of Haitians who have been marching for justice. He added that it is high time the UN make this right and prove to the world that human rights for all means for Haitians too.
And now it's time to take a look at what all is making news elsewhere as well.
Chinese President Xi Jinping holds talks in Beijing with Myanmar State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi. China visit is her first major diplomatic foray after Myanmar's new government took power in April. Australia and Papua New Guinea agreed to close a controversial asylum seeker detention centre on Manus Island. Fate of 800 refugees in camp remains unclear. Facility faced criticism of UN and human rights groups. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte rejects criticism from the United Nations about a surge in killings of suspected drug traffickers and denied government responsibility. Turkey's parliament approves a reconciliation agreement signed with Israel in June. Deal brings 6-year rift between the two regional powers to an end. Firefighters gaining ground against a wildfire burning in Southern California mountain. Around 100 homes destroyed. Blue Cat wildfire forces some 80,000 residents to evacuate. Typhoon Dianmu hits life in China's southern Henan province. More than 40,000 residents across the province were evacuated. US Olympic gold medalist swimmer Ryan Lochte issues apology after being accused of fabricating a story about being robbed at gunpoint during the Rio Games. Brazil police says no evidence to prove Lochte. 2 other swimmers were robbed. One of the swimmers had vandalized the gas station. Indonesia celebrates Independence Day. Nationwide celebrations were held on 17th of August.
Well, amid civil violence and conflict-afflicted South Sudan that has left thousands of children orphaned, Kathy Grondich brings some succor and peace to these children of conflict by rehabilitating them. Here's a touching story which explains that if we spare a thought for others, it can actually change the lives of many.
South Sudan has been in the throes of civil violence in spite of repeated efforts to strike a peace deal. The conflict has so far left close to thousands of children without parents. Kathy Groendish of Confident Children Out of Conflict rescues some of the affected girls and shields them from abuse, giving them a chance to better their lives.
I started with about 3 girls, and then the number grew by providing with them something to eat and water, a place to stay and water. And then the whole program started growing.
Singing is a main activity in the center through which the young girls are rehabilitated. The activity helps build their confidence. Being a part of the choir also in a way instills responsibility. This, in addition with their daily chores and studying, allows the children to have a chance at normal lives.
Here we have tough love, because they have to change, they have to be clean, they have to cook to participate in everything. They have to keep the environment where they sleep very, very clean and hygienic.
With discipline and care, the children also enjoy singing. It gives a new meaning to their war-torn lives. Though it is just a small effort towards helping children in conflict zones, Kathy is pushing the government to do more for them.
Well, this one is for all the art lovers out there, especially for those who love the works of Russian artist Ivan Aivazovisky, the painter who is famous for his seascape illustrations. A Moscow exhibition celebrating his 200th birth anniversary showcased Aivazovisky's famous artworks. As the cliche goes, thing of a beauty is a joy forever, and so remains the works of Aivazovisky. Let's take a look.
There is pleasure by the deep sea and the music in its roar. I love not man the less, but nature more. The words of Lord Byron echoes in the paintings of the Russian artist Ivan Aivazovisky. The celebrated painter is known for his works on sea and seascape. Waves, sea, coast, ships, Aivazovisky deftly and minutely put his brush to create more than 6,000 artworks. Celebrating the artist's 200th birth anniversary, Moscow's Tretyakov Gallery is hosting a large-scale exhibition on the life of the artist.
He was an incredible master with an astonishing mastery. The way he drew the waves, their depth, the translucent water and waves, the way he managed to convey the rhythm and movement of the waves. In this sense, he is an absolutely inimitable painter.
Featuring more than 120 paintings of Aivazovisky, the exhibition curates works from the beginning to the end of his life and celebrates the genius of the Romantic school artist. Aivazovisky, who had Armenian origins, incorporated themes of Armenia in his early works. However, he is remembered for his works on marine subjects and is known as the most influential seascape artist of Russia in the 19th century. His famous works included Storm near Evpatoria, View of Istanbul by Night, and The Wave.
He could select the palette that not many could. Contrasts are so soft. All transitions, shapes, small details are taken into account. He is just a genius.
The exhibition aims at reviving the works of the artist and looks at Aivazovisky's art from a different perspective. The work of the great maestro remains a legend and an inspiration for upcoming artists and a delight for art lovers now and for times to come.
And this brings us to the end of this edition of World Konnect. Do send us your feedbacks. You can write to us on our email ID, that is worldkonnect.ddnews@gmail.com. You can actually also follow us on Facebook as well. And before we leave, we bring you the glimpses of 5th Chinese National Ethnic Minority Art Festival inaugural show, which took place in Beijing. Folk songs, dances showcase the distinctive cultures and traditions of different ethnic groups of China. Take a look. Thank you very much for tuning in. From the entire team of World Konnect, thanks for watching. Namaskar.
He 山高水长手足情。
Mindige, aber der Trojaner